All right, everybody. This week on a very special episode of the Seller Community Podcast from List Perfectly and Listing Party, Trish and I are talking about replenishables and reselling. I'll ask Trish questions and she will answer them, and maybe I can give some witty insight. We will see. But as you, ladies and gentlemen, Trish Glenn, Super Sale Trish, is one of our internal selling experts, a six-ish figure reseller, as she pointed out to me earlier today. And
I
she's been
was I was a six-figure reseller till I took this job. Hard to do both at the same time.
five-ish figure reseller.
5-ish is great.
And,
5 times.
so she's been selling online for many years, so is an expert. And I, of course, as many of you, am a 1 to 3 figure seller, which makes me laugh every time. And I have sold online. But I do hang out with sellers like Trish, Teresa Cox, some of you listeners I know. So I osmosisly get knowledge from hanging out with you guys. But And when Trish and I touched on this last week, I thought it was super interesting, and it was something I hadn't thought about that much. But replenishables are items that can be consistently restocked and sold. Like earlier today, Costco order. I have some standing requests that I don't think I should have to write on the list. Hard-boiled eggs, cuties, bananas. Those are Doug's replenishables.
Okay.
But apparently I do have to write them on the list. But anyway, those are replenishables and in continuous demand by consumers, from everyday essentials like hard-boiled eggs, cuties, and bananas to specific niche items. I don't know what a niche item that I would have would be. Unlike one-off products or seasonal items, replenishables offer a steady stream of inventory for sellers because I guess they're always going to be selling. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's learn more about replenishables with my co-host, the fabulous Trish Glenn. Trish, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us to talk about replenishables.
Of course, Doug, my pleasure.
All right. And so give us some specific examples of replenishable products.
Sure. So traditionally, replenishables are things that are consumed, right? So deodorant, laundry detergent, not just food, but things that are like gone through so that you are replenishing them yourself, right? You need to buy these ever so often. They don't have to be things that you would buy weekly. They could be things that you buy yearly. Air filters, things that kind of get worn out and you replace. I could make an argument that undies are replenishable. You're going to buy more eventually, right? So that's the thought.
Interesting. Okay. That's good to know, Trish. Thank you so much. I'm going to reevaluate my underwear collection and see if I need to replenish any of them.
It's a good idea. We don't want holy undies, Doug.
That's right. Oh. Why are replenishables important to consider for resellers specifically?
So adding some replenishables, not changing your whole business model, not giving up what you sell, but adding a replenishable or a line of replenishables can give a reseller a way to have a steady stream to be able to figure out, okay, this would sell 10 times a year and kind of be able to keep it in stock and things like that. Replenishables can give a reseller who is usually a one-off seller, right? Usually, and if not maybe a one-off, but 50 and then they're gone and then you get the next deal, things like that. But it would give a reseller more of a steady aspect to one aspect of their business.
Interesting. Interesting. And so there are a number of inventory considerations related to replenishables. Tell us about that.
One of the things is finding them is very difficult. Okay. So finding a replenishable is like a holy grail for resellers. We look for them, we want them, we want to put them in our store. So making sure they hit a certain criteria, making sure that it's easy for you. There are things that have expiration dates, medicine, health and beauty, things like that. Those have expiration dates. And even though you may be able to get them at a very cheap price and you might be able to continually get them, you may have to be very careful of the expiration date. If it is very close to when you get it, you may have to sell it at such a discount that it isn't worth having. And then it's also like the first in, first out kind of thing. You have to watch. So there can be some inventory considerations to make sure you're set up to be able to follow those so that
Okay.
you don't, especially if you're selling it on some platforms are very specific. Like once it goes off of a date, you're in trouble, right? Like you can't sell it. So that's one thing. Another thing is to make sure that if you're going to add a replenishable to your inventory, make sure that it fits physically, right? Do you have the right setup? Do you have the right? Do you use a hanging system and you're going to get these big things? Where the hell are you going to put them? Do you have boxes? I have bins. Would I put it in a bin with clothing? Probably not. So it would need a separate thing. So just make sure you're thinking a few steps ahead before you put your money in and you get one. You get some.
So scalability. How scalable is replenishable selling if you get started?
So I would make an argument that scalability is very large. I do think that there's a lot more money involved, right? There is a lot more money involved in scaling this kind of business than scaling like a used clothing business, right? And the margins are much smaller. You are going to make much less per item normally. Now, if you happen to run into some deal that you find a manufacturer that isn't online, that you can put it online and have a great markup, that's a different story. But just normal everyday things that people think of as replenishables, those usually have a smaller margin than, like, say, one offs, but they give you a steady income and they give you a steady amount of velocity through your store, which anyone who kind of studies this stuff would realize that the velocity is going to help everything in your store,
Yeah.
right? So if this is making velocity, that will make the rest of your stuff be more seen in search. So for me, these can be beneficial for not only your store in general, but for helping all around. But it also, if you want to scale, the money may be a little bit more and the margin's a little tighter, but it's easier to get and easier to scale and easier to keep going because you can buy as much as you need, as much as you want. It isn't like finding all the new items every week.
Okay. Okay. So you touched on earlier the fact that replenishables are hard to identify to find something that sells and is going to sell. So let's talk about sourcing. So what are some top replenishable sourcing opportunities?
I just would like to put out there that I have spent very little time personally in this realm. I have done it a little bit, and the things that I did were local food things to where I live in New England. Okay. Brown bread in a can is a thing that we have up here. And
That's
it's
what I
not,
was going to ask, Trish. Bread in
yeah,
a can.
yeah, bread in a can. And it's a New England thing and you eat it with baked beans. It's not sold everywhere in the United States. So if I put it on eBay, it sells. I decided to stop doing it just because it didn't go with my business model at the time. Who knows? I may get back to it. Fluff is another thing that's a local thing here. Bell's seasoning. So look and see if you have some things that are local to where you are. Other things that are places are like wholesalers that distribute. Wholesale Ninja is one that comes to mind. But Wholesale Ninja constantly has cosmetics, right? So they constantly have nail polish, they constantly have eyeshadow, mascara, things like that. Things that women would buy over and over again and not just a one-time purchase. There are some wholesalers who are using like shelf pulls or overstock, those kind of things. I have a girl in my mastermind who mostly does replenishables. And she just writes every single manufacturer of a product she's interested in selling and sees if she can get them to talk to her. ASD would be someplace you might be able to find replenishables. So there are some outlets, but the thing about identifying a replenishable is that all the work is up front, right?
Okay.
It's not like some of the other stuff. This is all the work is up front because you do not want to put your money out until you know you can resell that.
Okay. All right. I don't know if you know this, Trish, but when I used to get my nails done regularly, I would go with often a clear coat, sometimes a black. And I would pick my color when I came in the shop.
First of all, I did not know you used to get your nails done regularly, though I must admit it does not surprise me.
I know.
And I know you'll probably be shocked to know this. I never really did get my nails done regularly.
Oh, I have.
Yeah.
It's nothing like a good panty and medi and maybe a foot
Annie and Medi, it would be a Medi.
Medi and Patty.
Manny and Petty.
Annie and Betty. There you go.
Oh Lord. What
That
is
is
going on, ladies and gentlemen?
All right, Trish. So anything to add to our replenishable conversation?
I think that replenishables is a really big subject, and this is just really the small tip of the iceberg. And I just would like to throw out there that we're going to do a few things in the next few weeks about replenishables.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we will also, in this show notes, I will also have a couple of documents that you can read that will be about replenishables. I just want to just get the conversation started and to put it out there that this is something that you could be adding to your business model.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Trish. This was interesting. I did learn some things about replenishables.
Good. I'm glad.
Let's move over to seller shoutouts. Do you want to get us rolling this week?
I would like to shout out the admittedly controversial Brian from Kings of eBay. He was on our show last week, and I'd love it if you guys would go and listen to it. I want to thank him for coming on. And I also would just like again to say if you're not on TikTok, please think about it. It has a really big reseller community, and you guys might really find it not only enjoyable, but informational, educational.
It was an interesting conversation, and I became aware of this guy, Brian Kings of eBay, when he was on the eBay for Business podcast, specifically talking about TikTok for sellers. And so he's big on TikTok. And again, it's like we said, I am controversial. I do speak my mind. I am a hardcore negotiator. And I watched a couple of his videos this week, and it's like, yeah, he was negotiating.
Yep.
Then a couple people reached out and said, "Oh, Kings of eBay's on the podcast. I watch him on TikToks." It was a fun conversation. Just to refer back to that, season 4, episode 6 of the Seller Community Podcast. All right, Trish.
Yes.
Anything else on Kings of eBay?
No, I think that's about it. Go listen. He's an amusing dude. He lives maybe about an hour north of me. And we got into a little bit North Shore, South Shore stuff, which if you're from Massachusetts, that means something.
Yeah, there you go. Massachusetts. And I had to leave the conversation for a minute. Massachusetts.
Yeah.
All right. Well, obviously, we always have eBay news.
Yeah.
So my old alma mater, the eBay for Business podcast, has had a run, I noticed, of our friends on the show recently. Maybe they are following our lead. I don't know. I don't want to imply anything.
You think they're stealing our mojo? Is that what you're trying to say?
Who do Doug and Trish have on this week? That's my Griff imitation. So recently, Paul Apollonia was on for his first time. Faith and Paul from My Reseller Jeannie were just on. Libby from Consignment Chats, all in the last few weeks.
These
So
are all our peeps.
I just thought it was interesting.
All our peeps.
Yeah, all of our peeps. And then, of course, as we talked about last week, our old buddy Brian Burke announced his, and we'll talk about this, not necessarily retirement. I've been going with retirement, but he's very careful with his choice of words. So we will get into that. But obviously, we run in the same circles with eBay for Business podcast. We're all here to help each other out.
Yeah, and I think that Griff and you and me and Brian and a few others, we all have the same goal. We want resellers to do well and to do better. And that's why we do this. And I think Griff and Brian obviously love eBay and do it for that. I love eBay. I'm an eBay girl, as I said last week to the Kings of eBay.
Exactly. But we don't know what Brian's going to be doing.
I'm very interested now that you've piqued my curiosity.
I wonder if he'd tell us. I don't know. Like, you never know. Doc Star, Brian Burke.
What are you doing?
All right. Anything else or seller shout outs this week, Trish?
No, I think that's about it for seller shout outs.
All right. Let's move over into Trish tips.
So my tip this week is
seller tips with Trish.
Whatever we're calling it. My tip this week will be about replenishables. And I just would like to say that, especially online in the YouTube world, replenishables are always like a holy grail. You want to find something that no one else has that you can corner the market on. And I am just going to say two things. A, I think replenishables are vast and varied. There is a ton. And when you talked about earlier, you said in niche markets and you didn't know what that meant. But you're a drummer. You constantly buy sticks, right? There are certain things that There are certain things that any kind of hobby or whatever use, guitar picks. There are things that you will continually buy. And so that is a replenishable, even if it's a very small amount of money.
There you go.
So my tip is to, if you think you're somebody who is interested in getting into the replenishables, just to be very careful. I think you do need to kiss a lot of frogs before you're going to find a prince. And I also would be a little bit wary about the money. I think I would put a little bit aside to try this, because I do think it takes a while to find something that works for you.
Interesting, interesting. Yeah. So thank you for putting it in that light that I could relate to, because I used to buy sticks. So the afternoon of a show, I'd go get some new sticks. I always had plenty. And then I got to this point where I was using these aluminum drumsticks, black aluminum A-head drumsticks. And then every once in a while, you got to buy new drum heads, things like that.
Yeah. So if you're a painter, you're going to buy new brushes, you're going to buy new paint. So those things that people are constantly having, and when I say constantly, like I said before, it could be once a year, doesn't
Yeah,
necessarily mean daily or weekly.
exactly. All right. Great replenishable tip, Trish. Thanks.
You're welcome. Now over to the news desk. What do we have this week, Doug?
As we mentioned earlier, Trish, big news in the seller community. Brian Burke officially announced this week that he was stepping down from eBay, stepping away. So I don't know, maybe we have to announce a retraction. I think we said retirement, but he came out with the official word straight out of the mouth of Brian Burke this week. Brian said, "It's time for me to think about the next phase of my life and kind of focus on that after decades in Silicon Valley."
What's the voice? What's the Brian voice? And then it's time.
That's my Brian voice. So Trish, Brian said on the podcast, the eBay for Business podcast this week, "It's time for me to think about the next phase of my life and kind of focus on that after decades in Silicon Valley in almost 25 years here at eBay. It's time for kind of the next chapter, and I'm looking forward to it. The things I will miss are people like you, Griff, in the company, and all the sellers that I've had the pleasure to come in contact with, and even those that may not have spoken to in person, but have read their emails and questions to us. The seller community is bar none the best in the world." And special shout out to Doug Smith and Trish Clark.
Okay. First of all, that end part did not happen. And
Okay.
second of all, Brian, I humbly beg your forgiveness. Please. You sound like you're reading, I don't even want to say,
So
but
now you be Griff.
I will. And then Griff responded, I agree. And I've known about this for several months now, and I have kept it under my hat. And I will have a goodbye statement for you in our last podcast, which I believe will be a couple weeks. Yeah, a couple weeks. So I'll wait, make any of my comments. But in the meantime, I'll tell you, I've enjoyed this so much. I would hate doing this. I will not like doing this podcast without you. But I understand we all move on in life. Nothing lasts forever, and I'm happy for you. He is a sweet guy, Doug, even though he pretends he's not.
That's right. And he's a very nice guy. So technically, he's saying he's leaving eBay, but I don't know. So Trish, there
Yeah.
is some controversy. Sellers are talking about Brian leaving, and they're all like, "Oh, does this mean eBay's not going to be as connected with sellers?" And then eBay announced that it was shifting from regularly scheduled monthly chats in the eBay community to ones that would take place around timely updates and changes. So it's interesting about this. When I was there, we did a weekly chat. It was like weekly, you could come in and ask questions, and sometimes we'd have experts in. But then at some point, they moved to monthly, and now it's just going to be now and again. And sellers on the community, there were regulars there, and there's a little ripple. Is are they moving more away? And how can we get in touch? And so I don't know.
Well,
What do
I
you
mean,
think?
I don't know. So Brian has been working with a woman named Kaomi for maybe the last 18
Yeah.
months or so. And she's stepping into, I'm not saying his role completely, but she was working alongside with him. And they seem to be putting a lot more focus on the eBay meetups than they did before.
Yeah.
So I am wondering if they are not stepping away, but they're just shifting their focus and they're maybe trying to diversify a little. I do think the problem with these like either weekly or monthly thing is like what you said, you get regulars, right? And so it's the same people again and again. And so I'm wondering if they will now use the eBay meetups as a way to branch out a little bit further and get a different message out and also to different people. So I actually don't think it's a bad thing. I think this could be good for our community.
All right, we'll see. Agree to disagree. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, I know they've really wanted to lean more into meetups and lean into virtual. Still do some in person, but really keep leaning into that virtual stuff. So I think you'll see more of that. And
Yeah.
Kiyomi's super cool.
That's very
Met
nice.
her, we liked her, and we met her at Camp LP right
Yep.
after she
Yep. Yep.
started. And this was her
Yes.
first event, and she was so excited. And it was really cool. Nice to meet her. And I
Yeah.
think she'll do a good job.
I'm a meetup leader with Diane Lasan. So she and I see her every month at the meeting. So she's great.
Yeah, there's only one Brian Burke.
It's very true, my friend.
All right, what's next, Trish?
Hey, so Doug,
Yes,
I know you're a big fan of ChatGPT,
this is true.
and I know you're always looking at the new tools and stuff. So I heard this thing called Sora, Sora. Do you know anything about it? Can you tell us?
Yes, Trish, this is very exciting. I just learned about this last week. So it's Sora, Sora, and it's going to be part of Chat GPT. So I think it's going to be a Chat GPT maker in OpenAI's new coming soon text to video generator. So now it's basically being tested by certain accounts, but at some point
Okay.
it's going to be available to everybody. And so let me tell you what it is and then how crazy it is. So it's a text to video generator, creating videos up to 60 seconds long based on written prompts using generative AI. So basically, you say, do this, and it does this. So it can generate video also from an existing still image. So the crazy thing is, it's unbelievably realistic looking. So the example they were talking about is they were like, okay, show us something like, show us two astronauts on the moon with red knit caps. And then it looked like a movie trailer, like a movie. It looked like a movie. It looked real, realer than a video game, crazy stuff. Again, I'm super excited about this, but I do see the other side where people are starting to freak out is like, what's it going to mean for Hollywood and TV? And I think it will open up a lot of opportunities, but it's also, could it cost some jobs? Again, I've always said this is Chat GPT. AI is a tool. It depends on how it's used. And I think that the industry, the film industry, TV industry, even social media and marketing are going to have to adapt to this tool and learn how to use it. It's like if you go back to, I can't believe you brought this up, Trish. If you go back to like music industry, it's like they had huge chances to adapt to digital music, to MP3s, and they largely did not adapt. So
True.
they could have changed their model. They could have done a lot of things. The traditional music industry has largely gone away compared to what it still could have been. Very few artists make money selling records nowadays. CDs still go out, but they don't sell anywhere what they used to. There's some collectors that still buy vinyl records and things like that, but basically they failed to adapt to this technology that was going to come along anyway. So again, this is an opportunity for multiple industries to adapt to ChatGPT and these tools, and it's going to get crazier, it's going to get better, it's going to get seamless. That's why some of the stuff you saw back with the Hollywood writer's strike where they're like has to be real people because they are literally getting to the point like it said it can take a still image and make a movie. So they could
Yeah.
take an image of us, the Thelma and Louise of e-commerce podcasting, and send us on little adventures. It would be crazy.
I cannot wait for that. That is great. But let me ask you a question. So yesterday or this morning, who the hell knows?
Mhm,
I was on TikTok and there was a woman's, it wasn't anything that interesting. She was cooking something
mhm.
and I was watching it because I was interested in this recipe. And in the bottom, it said AI generated. And
Yeah,
I pressed it because I wanted to understand. And then it went through that TikTok makes you, I don't know if it's, I don't know how they'll know, but you're supposed to have to say that it's AI generated. But what cracked me up about it is I don't know why this would be AI generated. It was literally her like cooking
yeah.
nothing.
Some people, you'll see a lot of attractive ladies that do stuff like that on TikTok, but also and attractive men, but also some people joke about it that it's AI generated. But I think that's where we're getting to, where you're going to be able to generate yourself doing stuff, your voice. Some stuff can already do this. I think it's getting to that point where, yeah, you're going to be able to do a podcast promo for blah, blah, blah with Trish and Doug's faces.
And
And
then they would just go in and whatever, watch it and then figure out and then make one.
on one hand, it creates a ton of opportunities, but it creates a ton of challenges for content creators, for filmmakers. And I think it's, again, it's a tool that has to be adapted to. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that. And you do see some now AI generated videos. You see
I mean,
some
it
AI
says it on
generated
TikTok, so
characters.
look tonight when you're scrolling, as I know you will be, scroll and see if you see one.
They even have AI generated, they call them companions. So you can sign up for these services and you can have these AI generated companions that will speak to you and things like that, Trish. I would say wait and see is if think back when the first time you heard about AI and Chat GPT and how far it's come since then.
Quite available to the public yet?
Not yet, coming soon.
Okay. Okay,
But
interesting.
I will definitely have an eye on it and I'll generate some Trish Doug videos. Trish Doug fan fiction.
I can't wait. Can I tell you what I want us to do?
What do you want us to do?
I don't know. I'm just saying. Can I give you a plot?
Go thrifting
Yes.
in Vegas? All right,
Yeah.
Trish, I'm going to leave this thrilling next tidbit of news to you.
Is increasing their pricing for their shipping starting March 1st, effective March 1st. Kittison will be adjusting their shipping label prices in accordance with these new increases. The new prices will be as follows. So if you sell on Kittison, please go and look because the prices are changing. Less than 4 ounces, $4.75. Less than 8 ounces, $5.15. Less than 12, $6.15. Less than 16, $7.15. And then they're same for over a pound. We've also got some good news. We're adding media mail into our shipping label options. And as we all know, media mail is Doug's favorite.
That's
Media
right.
mail is restricted only to books and other media. It's important that this label is not used for clothing, shoes, accessories, or anything other than media, as it's subject to search and may be either confiscated, sent back to the center, or charged for additional postage.
Yeah.
So, and then the other thing that they have to say, I think is very interesting. This is from Kittison. We are continuing to see a lot of underpaid postage charges and want to emphasize how important it is to weigh your packages. USPS is weighing all packages, and if your package is found to be overweight, designated on the label of the package, you will be charged. Also, using carrier branded packaging such as USPS priority flat rate boxes could result in an underpaid postage charge. After 3 underpaid postage charges, there will be a $2 penalty added to each additional charge. eBay does this also, just so everybody knows. eBay also has a deal with the post office, and you will every once in a while get something in your seller hub or into your email that will show you your weights. Most of the time, I end up getting money back. I consistently go over a little. It is just because I do it before I put it in its packaging. Usually, I'll weigh the item and then I'll put it in a poly mailer and then I'll put the thing on it. So for me, I'm always upping like 2 or 3. Just if it's
Yeah.
11.2,
There.
I'd go to 13. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So for me, I'm always getting money back. So I just would like to say they do it both ways. You can get your money back if you're somebody like me. Every once in a while, I will undercharge by accident. If they think you are doing it maliciously, it can become a problem. And another thing you have to be careful of is the priority packaging. Priority packaging is free from the USPS. It's only for priority. Please don't abuse it because they'll take it away from us eventually.
yeah, and the same thing with media mail. Don't be messing with my media mail. Don't be sending clothes. Don't be sending shoes. It is
Right.
book.
You're not even supposed to send anything that has an advertisement in it.
Yep, that's right. That's right. Be careful. It's mostly for books. Technically, magazines have advertisements, but I've done books. I've done video games. I've done comic books. I've probably done a couple magazines. I also did that works with Lego listing too and got away with that. But listen,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, don't do as I do.
Don't do what Doug does. Do what I say.
That's right. I'm just here for color commentary and entertainment value.
Which we adore, Doug, but we're not always going to take your advice on what we should be sending in the mail.
Well,
That's about it, Doug. That is about all the news we have this week.
that's right. That's all the news that fits. Thank you so much, Trish. And what a great supercharged, replenishable episode. You know what? I feel replenished, Trish, after talking to you about
Hey,
all this.
this is the tip of the iceberg. We're going to talk about this a few more times this month. We'll have a listing party about it. We're going to put out some blog posts. So please be on the lookout because replenishables is a very big topic and we really spoke little.
That's right. Super high level. But no, thank you, Trish. It was great.
Anytime, my friend.
All right.